off the coast of Venezuela. SOS, SOS, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Help! Help! The Trinidad, a luxury line. Sailing the Caribbean Sea with an old captain named Eric Williams. Oh yes, it's smooth and free. But sadly Eric Williams passed away. The ship hit rough water that day. Someone turned the bridge over to a captain named Chambers. Me blood crawl, things start to fall. Hold me head when I sail a fall. Captain, this ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. Oh yes, we gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. The Trinidad, oh, she was a beauty with wealth that few surpassed. And in her day, she sailed majestically. There were few in her class. Faithfully, she fulfilled her sailor's need. Some were overpowered by greed, and so they pilfered slow. Some took by bulk and go. Now she looked dull, she's at a lull. She could barely sit on her hull. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. Trinidad, in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, well, she always did her best to help out those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in difficulties. Though she helped cheer, some of them cheer and sarcastically declare, Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we sit on it and perish slow? We don't know, we don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa, whoa. If only there was something I could have done to restore the credibility of this beautiful vessel. Money's no problem. Now there's a lot of fingers pointing, suspicion running strong. Who's to be blamed for all her failures? Who's to be blamed for doing her wrong? Now please remember, I'm warning you. For 30 years she had the same crew who hold the keys to her vault. So we know who's at fault. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make her worthy to go back to sea. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough, oh yes. We gas tank almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure reading low. Shall we abandon ship or shall we
101.5 FM. Well, Corky, my brother, if you were not sure, you are definitely sure right now that you are living in a total dictatorship under a human being who may be, when all is said and done, characterized as one of the lowest level character human beings to ever reach a leadership position in a Caribbean country. Keith Christopher lying, pathologically dishonest, oppressive, dictatorial, coming to procure without procurement Rowley, has been caught lying again. And I want to ask all the columnists, all the bright people in Trinidad and Tobago, aren't you all fed up that you all have this country in such a mess? I want to ask the Newsday and Judy Raymond and The Guardian and Ansa McCall and Mr. Sabga, while you're happy with your profits, are you happy with the country that you call your home, Mr. Sabga? Are you pleased that our school children are going back out to school and there are countless videos of more fighting than ever in the history of our beautiful Twin Island Republic? That our girls are fighting, and where they learn the skill of violence with weapons and on top of cars and beating other girls and pulling their hair and kicking them in their face, while we drive on roads that if you take your eyes off the road, you bust tires. We cannot afford to fill our tank. I lost, so I check for all you. For my $200, Corky, I would normally, before the final increase, well, not the final, the latest, let me be correct. The latest increase by Rowley, because all they have more increase to come, because they have privatized and liberalized the whole thing like they said they would do in the budget, that they are coming to sell off your gas stations. When they sell off that, you have a next markup of 40% on top of that, on top of whatever increased price with no subsidy, that coming too. So let me don't say the last, the latest. Corky, my $200, I always just go and put 200 diesel. My 200 diesel before this latest increase would give me 484 kilometers. All right? When I put 200 diesel on the 21st of April, it came up as soon as the 200 went in that I was down to 392, from 484 to 392 kilometers that Rowley and him but sucked out of my tank. So in this country that nothing works, you pay taxes, people are complaining about local government councillors, not even understanding that the government, the PNM government and the PNM Ministry of Local Government is starving, especially UNC-held corporation for funding. And they are being given, the corporations are being given less than 35% of what they are actually budgeted. On top of that, since the budget was read in October, no releases have reached the corporations across the country in UNC health territory. Yet I see UNC people attacking the UNC counselor and calling them doke and that they are no good. And what abject nonsense. If you do not get the resources in this constitution that we have, where the central government controls the resources, the chairman of the Penal Debe Corporation can do nothing. He may want to fix roads and drains and potholes and maintain recreational grounds. But if Faris Al-Rawi, who gets his rent on time, and his ministry refuse to send releases for every head of expenditure, whether it's diesel, whether it is money for repairs, for roads, for drainage, to pay workers, wages, whatever it is. If the Ministry of Local Government, which is PNM, does not send money to the corporation is basically defunct. They can do nothing without the resources. So blaming those who can do nothing without the PNM giving them resources is abject total nonsense. But in this beautiful country of ours where nothing works, where we have totally failed, we have caught the Prime Minister, Keith Christopher Rowley, lying again. Remember Kamla Prasad Bisesa told y'all that a whistleblower from deep inside, I won't tell you all from where because they're looking, they're trying to find the source of the leak, the whistleblower. You know, PNM does fire whistleblowers. The two whistleblowers and the two fellas on the NGC board who were trying to save the taxpayers $233 million, they were fired unceremoniously and kicked off. They weren't renewed on the board. You know, the PNM whistle, once you blow a whistle, you get bust throat. So Kamla Prasad Bisesa told the nation that Keith Christopher Rowley and the PNM were monitoring and using spyware to illegally intercept conversations of law-abiding citizens, media personnel, politicians, opponents, members of the PNM who are against Rowley. Rowley came out in Diego Martin and said, yes, we have the spyware, but it is only being used on criminal elements because the gang members use cell phones on the cell network, and the cell phones are the best friends or the best tool of the criminal gangs, and therefore it was only used on criminals, and Kamla lied, it's not being used on law-abiding citizens. Then about 22 days later, Keith Christopher Rowley went in the parliament recently and read out a statement like a 5-year-old, like he could not read, stating that there was no spyware whatsoever ever purchased, no Pegasus. Now, understand this, he plays smart with foolishness, because whether the spyware is Pegasus, Pegasus, Pegs, Degs, Jegs is irrelevant. Whether it's an iPhone or an Android, whether it is VAT-19 rum or Brian Lara Black Label, whether it is eggs, scrambled egg, or sunny side up egg is not the point. The point is that there is spyware. Rowley said there's no spyware. Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police, said, listen, we did not buy Pegasus, but the National Security Council, the Prime Minister, the Cabinet, in order to fight crime, made arrangements and provided money for the purchase of spyware. But Gary Griffith, as Commissioner of Police, decided to have checks and balances, because while this spyware is very good to help intercept criminal conduct, there is a wide opportunity for abuse in its use of spying on law-abiding citizens, and to be used by politicians, especially those who are insistent on being a dictator and controlling everything. So Gary Griffith said that he put half the equipment by the SSA, and the SSA has a political element in that the government, the executive, in this case the PNM, Keith Rowley and Faris Al-Rawi and Small Pin and Kelbert Hines, could appoint and hire and on contract and fill out the organizational structure of the SSA. And they have some sort of control and influence on the SSA. So what Gary Griffith did was put half the equipment by the SSA and half the equipment by the independent police, so that either one would be a check and balance on the other one. So if the police want to go and intercept Corky, they have to show the SSA why they believe Corky is a criminal thing, and then the SSA have to agree, and both of them could then join up the two pieces of equipment, and it could work. Well, now the plot thickens, because DCP Jacobs, who obtained his job because Rowley got vexed with Gary Griffith and lost confidence in Gary Griffith and caused the president and Bliss C. Prasad to breach their duty and break the law and breach the Constitution, and Keith Rowley, as the Prime Minister, interfered, influenced, interfaced, and misbehaved in public office in order to thwart the merit list, to get rid of Gary Griffith and to put who he wanted as the acting commissioner of police. But this man is DCP Jacob. Now, in a little article today, where Fitzgerald, the headline is, Fitzgerald Hines calls on Kamala to bring evidence. When you go down after halfway in the article, the reporter got a quote from DCP Jacobs. And DCP Jacobs, poor fella, you see, Corky, when you now come in a lime, and you're not really in the lime, you're now trying to be the lime, but you not really a brethren. But the brethren and them is real liars, and they lie in a long time, and them is king liar. Everything come out, there's trained soldiers in lying. There's expert liar. And you now join the expert liars, you don't be as skillful as them. You understand? So the truth does fall out your mouth.
Yes.
Because DCP Jacob said, and I'll only go and read it in the paper. He said since September 2021, all the equipment that the TTPS had was sent over to the SSA. So therefore the SSA, which is the politically controlled arm that could do the spying, had the ability since September last year, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, and we're going into May. DCP Jacobs let the cat out the bag to show that Rowley, Ethelbert, the PNM, the SSA, the politically controlled arm, that DCP Jacobs broke down the check and balance that Gary Griffith had there, that the TTPS could not spy on anybody without an amalgam and an approval and a working with the SSA and vice versa. Jacobs give all to the political element, and therefore they had 100% of the equipment and had the capability to spy on anyone and any citizen that they wanted since September last year.
What?
So Kamala Prasad Bisesa was 100% right. Keith Christopher Rowley has been proven once again to be a 100% pathological liar, a total dictator that has taken our country down into the bowels of ineptitude, inequality, lack of performance, ridiculous, lack of merit. He has dragged the flag of Trinidad and Tobago like no other human being. Even if you are a PNM staunch till you're dead, you have to be ashamed that Rowley is your leader. He is disgusting. He is selfish. He is dishonest. He is nasty. He is dictatorial. And he has been caught lying. And to all the intelligent people now, and to all the mass media, the Guardian, the Express, the Newsday, TV6, CNC3, all the columnists, Transparency International, where are all the people who always pressuring and saying they love Trinidad and Tobago? Rowley has been caught with his drawers around his ankles. Rowley has been caught lying and spying on citizens of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The truth has come out from DCP Jacob. If all you don't understand what I'm saying, Corky, Corky,
yes, sir.
I did a little doubles and coffee this morning.
Right.
And I broke it down succinctly for everybody. I want you to line up that. And I want you to play it. And I want every citizen who has an ability to record it,
Yes.
or to go on Douglar Politics and share it, and listen to it, and go through it, and understand what Keith Christopher Rowley is. Understand what he is doing to your country. Understand what he is doing for generations to come. Understand where your money is going. Understand what he is doing. He's decimating everything that is Trini, everything that is Tobagonian. This is not funny. If you are a PNM, you should be ashamed. If you are a PNM, you should hold your head and ball. If you are a PNM, you should remove Rowley to save your organization if you love your organization. And by doing that, you will save what is left of Trinidad and Tobago. So I want everybody, if you can't record it now, listen good. If you have a pen and paper, take notes, because this man is diabolical. He is pathological. He is nasty, wicked, vindictive, sick, low character. This thing should not even be, let me tell you, he shouldn't even be on the two rocks of Trinidad and Tobago. He should be under Golden Grove. The man so classless. He don't even deserve to go in Golden Grove and sit down by a bucket. He should be under the jail. You ready, Corky?
Yes, sir. Let's go.
So, and after that, we'll run some ads and we'll come right back. Later on, we will join the United National Congress, who will talk more about this spyware, Spygate, and Rowley's Liegate once again.
Yes.
Listen carefully. When I give you all information and I research and I read all of these nonsensical newspapers, it is not for me to feel I bright, you know. It is for you, the people, to have information, to share the information, to save your country from this pathological lying dictator called Keith Christopher Oreo Nasty, disgusting Rowley. Run it there, Corky.
Yes, let's go.
Doubles and coffee. You know you are in a dictatorship when the government has the opportunity, purchases, and puts in place systems to spy on innocent, law-abiding citizens. We all agree on that. Every single citizen. Okay? So Kamala Pasabi made some accusations about Israeli spyware. Keith Christopher Rowley came out and said, yes, we have spyware. We've been utilizing it, but not on law-abiding citizens, on criminals, because criminals use phones, and cell phone network is the best thing, and so on and so forth. So, flash forward, Keith Christopher Rowley, the notorious liar of the Commonwealth, then goes to the Parliament and says, no, not at all. There is no spyware purchase at all by the government and the police, and no one is utilizing any Pegasus. Right. Fitzgerald Hines comes and says, Kamala, bring your evidence. Rowley didn't bring no evidence or email gate, but Fitzgerald Hines comes out and says, bring your evidence of what you're talking about, that the PNM government out under Keith Christopher Rowley is spying on law-abiding citizens, politicians, political opponents, media, and so on. Very interesting. Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police, well, the Express and Rowley tried to pelt it on he. That Gary was a rogue and went and buy spyware for himself to use. Okay. Gary Griffith said there was certain spyware bought under national security policy and so on. That it was not Pegasus, but he, while he was Commissioner of Police, understood the power, the awesome power of the spyware that was purchased with the full knowledge and approval of the government and National Security Council, National Security Minister and Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But he, Gary Griffith, kept it separate. There are two arms who could utilize this technology. The SSA, which has a political component, which is influenced and staffed by the politicians, by the cabinet, and then the TTPS, which is the independent arm of the state. So Gary Griffith said he put in checks and balances. So if the political arm, the SSA, want to spy on somebody, they cannot do it unless they, one, notify the police and the police agree, because the system in two parts and you need two parts to operate. That's what Gary Griffith said. So how do we get to the truth as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? Y'all know Rowley's a liar, okay. Understand what is really going on. You know Fitzgerald Hines is a bigger liar than Rowley, but with less power. But maybe that's not enough for you. Okay, you know how you always get down to the truth? You listen to everything that everyone has to say. You read, you remember, and then you analyze. And you look for, especially when you are posed with pathological liars, you look for the person who has the least experience in lying. And you listen, read, and take note of what they said. In comes DCP Jacob, a man who only has his current job now because Keith Christopher Rowley, the PNM Prime Minister, decided to interfere, influence, and misbehave in public office to get two other public officials to breach their duty, to breach the law and to breach the Constitution, and to do actions that would present Keith Rowley with a benefit. That benefit being get rid of Gary Griffith, get rid of the merit list. On August 11, Keith Rowley went to the President Paula May Weeks and Bliss C. Prasad and influenced them to breach Section 123 of the Constitution. Then up jumps DCP Jacob from 6th place to politically appointed acting commissioner of police. Right? You all did not understand what and why that was such a constitutional crisis of critical proportions, but now you will understand. So we come now, flash forward, 2022, April going into May, and spying on citizens is a topic. So Rowley talk, Rowley 1, yes we have it. Rowley 2, no we have no Pegasus. Fitzgerald Hines, tell Kamala bring the evidence. Gary Griffith, yes it was there with approval, not Pegasus. But I put checks and balances to follow the law to make sure that it was for criminals and could not be utilized and could not be abused to spy on law-abiding citizens. So one part was left with the SSA, which is politically controlled by the PNM, and the other one was left with the TTPS, an independent institution. Let's read what DCP Jacob said, because he has less experience lying than Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines. Listen carefully and take note that this statement by DCP Jacobs was stuck in the corner of an article and put halfway down that 98% of the population would not read. But I found it and I will read it for you. Here DCP Jacob, the acting commissioner of police. Jacob said, Jacob denied any wrongdoing by the police service, insisting that the TTPS does not currently have access to spy software. He said, now keep in mind TTPS, the independent institution, and SSA, keep that in mind, okay? He said that while a former commissioner of police, Gary Griffith, purchased spyware of less capability than the Pegasus spyware, the software they acquired was never utilized. That software was in two parts. One, for a period of time, certain aspects of it was in the possession of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and the other half was in possession of the SSA. So Jacobs confirms what Gary Griffith said. Without both merging and coming together, nothing could happen. Therefore, also within there, a lot of training needed to take place in order for it to be utilized. The police's software, Jacob added, was handed over to the SSA last September. Let me repeat. The police half, the TTPS, the independent half, the software, was handed over to the SSA last September. That means that the SSA, the political side, the politically influenced side, the political side of the arm that could spy on you, had the capability 100% since September last year. Since after the constitutional crisis, since Gary Griffith was removed, the SSA, not the TTPS, because the SSA, the political part, could have given the police the other half so it could have been utilized. But no, it went the opposite direction. So what Jacobs is saying here, that since September last year, the political arm, the SSA, with members appointed by the Cabinet, the Ministry of National Security, the National Security Council, the Prime Minister, and the Minister of National Security, had the full entire capability to spy on you and whoever without checks and balances since September last year. You see, Jacob wasn't briefed very well. He's not a pathological liar. The truth does fall out his mouth like dribble. And look how dangerous it is now. The question of police utilizing software to spy on anybody could not have taken place. That's true, Jacob. Because you or the police hand over all to the SSA. So the police, the TTPS had zero. They had 50% of Douglar to make sure it had checks and balances. The PNM Rowley put who they want and thwart the merit list. And then the political arm, the SSA, moved from 50%, which they could not utilize, to all the spy equipment. You see, Jacob asserted. So ladies and gentlemen, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, and we're going into May. For the last 9 months, after your constitutional crisis involving Keith Christopher Rowley, causing the President and Bliss C. Prasad, the former chairperson of the Police Service Commission, to ensure that Rowley was happy with the police commissioner who he appointed to act and that he can control and dictate. The checks and balances to protect you, the law-abiding citizens, were removed. And it was removed not in a manner to increase your security and increase and enhance your democracy and ensure that you were not abused. It was not handed over to the police, the independent arm that is there to protect you. The spyware which exists, and it may not be named Pegasus, but the spyware, as Rowley admitted, to go into phones and sell network because the criminals utilize it. Since September, as stated by DCP Jacob, Acting Commissioner of Police, corroborating what Gary Griffith said, has been in the hands of the political arm, the politically appointed head SSA. The checks and balances were removed, and therefore Kamala Prasad Bissessa is damn right, and Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines are found lying again. And you all, 75% of you, knew that, because you know that they're spying on you. But now DCP Jacobs, a man who was not briefed by the two pathological liars, talks the truth, corroborates everything. And the facts are now that before September 2021, there was no ability to spy on citizens without the approval of both the politically influenced SSA and the TTPS. So there were checks and balances. DCP Jacobs, after the constitutional crisis, and we told you that political interference in the police is dangerous and tyrannical and leads to an oppressive dictatorship, he now confirms that since September last year, the political arm, taking and being influenced by Rowley and Fitzgerald Hines, had total control of the technology to spy on you. What say you now, my people? What say you now, lawyers, former commissioners of police, senior counsel, law professors, watch groups, people of Trinidad and Tobago? What say you now that this clown, this pathological, arrogant Wajang Rowley has had the capability to spy on you, the people, since September last year? DCP Jacobs, they tell me don't walk with Jacob because Jacob just walk and shake up. You're in a lion's den, but it's not a lion that roars. You're in a den of liars. For you, they go now blow you out. Trinidad and Tobago, what I say? But it's all being confirmed now. Bless. Welcome to your dictatorship.
Answered Service Limited at 106 Egypt Main Road, Point Fortin, specialize in heavy, extra heavy, lifting and also transporting services. Services provided at ASL are, but not limited to, civil and mechanical engineering, site preparation and earthworks, waste management services for non-hazardous material, land reclamation and land development, asphalt paving, supply of ready-mix concrete. We offer rental of most equipment such as crane, tractors, trucks, excavators, and much more. Happy Eid greetings to you and your family from the management of Answered Services Limited. May the day be a dawn of blessings, love, and peace in your life. Eid Mubarak. Please call us at 648 5777 or 648-2489 or email us at answeredservices@gmail.com. We lead, others follow.
In this month, close to 2 billion Muslims worldwide observe Ramadan, their most holy and beloved month, yet most difficult. 30 days of fasting from food and drink and praying build mental fortitude and closeness to Allah. There is a lesson in their sacrifice, discipline, and faith, a motivation to us all to be resilient and look forward to a brighter day. Just as the hunger of Ramadan ends with the joys of Eid, it is our prayer that the power of this holy month inspire humanity to awaken, to remember God, and to make this world a better place. Ramadan Mubarak to our Islamic community and our nation from your Royal Castle.
Come to the Waves Restaurant and Bar, Grafton Beach, Black Rock, Tobago. Great ambience, fantastic prices, all COVID protocols observed. Full premium bar available. Call Waves at 731-4646 to make your reservation. Come dine with the Waves Restaurant and Bar, Grafton Beach, Black Rock, Tobago. You must be vaccinated to dine in.
Hello again. Here's a message from your friends at the castle, reminding you that this Mother's Day, we've got some great food for mom and the whole family. From the fantastic family meal with 12 pieces of chicken, 6 sides, and a 2-liter Coke, to our delicious rotisserie chicken meals, our fantastic sandwiches, and more. Treat mom to the mouth-watering local flavor of Royal Castle and share some happy family moments. And remember, Royal Castle, it's our culture and our taste.
Fresh Street Market, your neighborhood supermarket.
Number 3 Andrew Lane, corner Churchill Roosevelt Highway and Andrew Lane, Derby, Mousica.
Opening hours.
Saturday 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Sundays 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. When you think about fresh produce and good quality food, come to Fresh Street Market, your neighborhood supermarket.
Number 3 Andrew Lane, corner Churchill Roosevelt Highway and Andrew Lane, Derby, Mousica.
They came in search of a better life, and they toiled in the sugarcane fields from dawn to dusk. Devoted to their tasks, they would become agents of transformation in their adopted homeland, producing in the passage of time generations of Trinbagonians who hold their own in many disciplines of life, including the arts. During Indian Arrival Month, MCTV pays tribute to these talented sons and daughters of our land in a weekly 1-hour show entitled Jahaji Sangam, a convergence of songs. Celebrate with us this merging of skills of the Indian diaspora by homegrown Trindo talent. Saturdays at 8 during the month of May with me, Gideon Hanuman Singh, exclusively to MCTV.
U975 Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio and Multicultural Television, MCTV, bringing you back where you belong. Part of the Rhythms Communications Network. To advertise with us, call 218-7820.
In this month, close to 2 billion Muslims worldwide observe Ramadan, their most holy and beloved month, yet most difficult. 30 days of fasting from food and drink and praying build mental fortitude and closeness to Allah. There is a lesson in their sacrifice, discipline, and faith, a motivation to us all to be resilient and look forward to a brighter day. Just as the hunger of Ramadan ends with the joys of Eid, it is our prayer that the power of this holy month inspire humanity to awaken, to remember God, and to make this world a better place. Ramadan Mubarak to our Islamic community and our nation from your Royal Castle.
Answered Service Limited at 106 Egypt Main Road, Point Fortin, specialize in heavy, extra heavy, lifting and also transporting services. Services provided at ASL are, but not limited to, civil and mechanical engineering, site preparation and earthworks, waste management services for non-hazardous material, land reclamation and land development, asphalt paving, supply of ready-mix concrete. We offer rental of most equipment such as crane, tractors, trucks, excavators, and much more. Happy Eid greetings to you and your family from the management of Answered Services Limited. May the day be a dawn of blessings, love, and peace in your life. Eid Mubarak. Please call us at 648-5777 or 648-2489 or email us at answeredservices@gmail.com. We lead, others follow.
Le Grand Coulon Spa Resort at Stonehaven Bay, Blackrock. Bed and breakfast rates available. To book, call 283-2597 or 463-2946. Le Grand Coulon Spa Resort at Stonehaven Bay, Blackrock.
Hello again. Here's a message from your friends at the castle, reminding you that this Mother's Day, we've got some great food for mom and the whole family. From the fantastic family meal with 12 pieces of chicken, 6 sides, and a 2-liter Coke, to our delicious rotisserie chicken meals, our fantastic sandwiches, and more. Treat mom to the mouth-watering local flavor of Royal Castle and share some happy family moments. And remember, Royal Castle, it's our culture and our taste.
The Local Palooza Show and Countdown. Now showing on MCTV. Hosted by TNT's rock ambassador, Bees Hi-Fi, the metal merchant. See and hear all your favorite local rock bands. Keep it rock alive. Rhythms Communications Network. Local Palooza Show and Countdown on MCTV. The Local Palooza Show and Countdown. Now showing on MCTV. Sport is in trouble. What can be done to save sports in TNT? Join host Gordon Pear on Sports Insight every Monday and Wednesday on MCTV from 4:30 p.m. as he identifies the problems, look for solutions, and points the way forward. Sports Insight, where we talk to the coaches, athletes, administrators, and of course, you the fans, as we bring positive change through sport.
It's time to make your community better than before. Join yours truly, Kieran Joseph Samaru, on Your Community. We'll be discussing the important issues with the important people in the place most important to you, your community. Join us every Tuesday at 9 p.m. right here on MCTV as we know and make your community better than before.
In this month, close to 2 billion Muslims worldwide observe Ramadan, their most holy and beloved month, yet most difficult. 30 days of fasting from food and drink and praying build mental fortitude and closeness to Allah. There is a lesson in their sacrifice, discipline, and faith, a motivation to us all to be resilient and look forward to a brighter day. Just as the hunger of Ramadan ends with the joys of Eid, it is our prayer that the power of this holy month inspire humanity to awaken, to remember God, and to make this world a better place. Ramadan Mubarak to our Islamic community and our nation from your Royal Castle.
Douglar. Yes, you're locked onto U97.5, Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, Douglar Radio, together with U97.5. Arnold Roberts, are you there?
Yes, my brother. I hope everybody had a good listen. Are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear, yeah.
Yes, my brother. It is really, really frightening. This has gone beyond a joke.
Yes.
This is not funny. These are serious, critical, constitutional breaches of the law, the rights of citizens, oppression, dictation dictatorship. This has gone beyond politics. This has gone beyond red versus yellow. This is abject, total madness. Let me also read. I see that a late statement came out this afternoon from former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith. Let me read some of that for you all.
Yes.
It says, the truth revealed and the misleading of Parliament. At yesterday's press conference, Acting Commissioner of Police McDonald Jacob confirmed what I've said. This is a statement by Gary Griffith, former Commissioner of Police.
Yes.
What I've said, which is that the intercept equipment was bought during my tenure and part of the system was in the custody of the TTPS. The other part was being held by the SSA, and that any party which intended to use the intercept equipment needed both parts to do so, a check and balance. Interestingly, however, he also admitted, this is DCP Jacob, also admitted that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service transferred their part of the intercept equipment to the SSA on September 10, 2021, which is 22 days after my contract, this being Gary Griffith, ended, and exactly 1 week before I was illegally suspended by former PSC Chairman Bliss C. Prasad after she lied to the other police service commissioners, stating that I was under investigation, which I was not. She had to later rescind the suspension via correspondence dated September 23rd. Now, it's while this bacchanal going on with Gary Griffith, suspension, meritless, bacchanal, DCP Jacobs, who was at that time appointed by Colm Imbot as the accounting officer, who went and fired 19 people but leave he 2 children with salary. He fired a groundsman. He fired a groundsman and who working for 5,000 a month, but leave he 2 children who making 15,000 a month and say it was done to save money. And he leave the next Miss Ramgalam, who he went in a meeting with to fire and take food off of 19 people's table. They leave she daughter in the legal department also. Remember that? That at that time now. So while he is the accounting officer appointed by Colm Imbot, DCP Jacobs admitted yesterday that the check and balance that was put in by former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith to ensure that private citizens and law-abiding citizens, their rights were not abused by the use of this spyware, that it would be used for criminal interception only.
Right.
DCP Jacobs take his portion and give it all to the politicians, so that they had full capacity to macro who they want, when they want, how they want, without any check and balance since September 10, 2021. Griffith continued. He said, this series of events, their dates and timing beg so many questions. If the TTPS provided a check and balance for the SSA using the intercept equipment, why was full control transferred to the SSA, which is a politically appointed body? 2, what or who gave Jacob the confidence to make such a monumental decision less than 3 weeks after my contract ended, and under the context that I would be returning to head the TTPS, since on September 10th, there was no indication that I wasn't returning to head the TTPS. So you understand that? So if Griffith had taken a decision to put checks and balance to make sure that this equipment could not be used to spy on law-abiding citizens, and he expected to come back in the work, he had applied to the work, he had gone and do interview, he had done well in the interview, and so on, and Jacobs did not even apply. How Jacobs had the strength the fortitude while just holding a little office without no position to take such a decision to put such equipment in the hands of politicians. You understanding what I say?
Yes, sir.
We going ahead. Since September 10th to now, says Gary Griffith, have any checks and balances been put in place for the SSA with regards to using the intercept equipment? So Kamla Prasad Bisesa got information from a whistleblower from deep within, I ain't gonna tell all your way, because they're looking for who it is, to say that the equipment was being abused and the rights of law-abiding citizens were being infringed upon in the most draconian way by the political arm of the PNM, the government, Keith Rowley and Ethelbert Hines. And she is absolutely correct. Jacob admitted that. Gary Griffith is confirming what Kamala said, because since September 10th last year, the SSA had the total capacity to spy on who they want, when they want, how they want, without any accountability, without any approval, without any independent institution monitoring or vetting them, because the police, who is the independent authority, gave the SSA all the equipment. Also, without, Gary Griffith continues, without parliamentary cover, Minister Fitzgerald Hines refused to support and echo the words of his boss, Keith Rowley, who seemed to insinuate that the purchase of intercept equipment bought under my tenure, meaning Gary Griffith, was somehow done so without government knowledge and oversight. In fact, had that actually been true, one would expect that both the Minister of National Security and the Acting Commissioner of Police to both address it, since it was, or it would be, tantamount to me, Gary Griffith, misbehaving in public office, which is a serious criminal charge. A very serious charge. Hines, as a lawyer, knew, of course, that he could not dare make such assertions outside of Parliament. When you add the factor that a senior government official was attempting to pressure me, being Gary Griffith, I'm reading from Gary Griffith's statement that came out this afternoon, to put a particular police constable to head the unit within the TTPS that controlled the part of the intercept equipment held by the TTPS, coupled with the fact that Jacob, barely 3 weeks in charge of the TTPS, transferred full control of the equipment to the SSA. A very frightening scenario presents itself. And DCP Jacob, why would you do that? You are the acting commissioner of police. You are in charge of the crime fight. You have half the equipment. Why didn't you tell the political arm, the SSA, to give you all the equipment so that the independent arm could operate? If you want one, if you don't like check and balance, because the ideal is the check and balance, leave it there so that people's rights, you could ensure that anybody who want to use equipment for nefarious means, that it was more difficult so to do. But secondly, if you want to put all in one area, why you didn't put all by the police? Why you put all by the politicians? Where the politicians control, where the politicians appoint. You saw what happened in Wassa when I asked them, but how all you acting? All you can't do your work properly, because as you do your work properly and you don't listen to the dictates of the PNM, you will be fired. I Shepard about that just now, the CEO Shepard, who tried to uphold the lies of Rowley about the Salcott and water, lying all over the place. Where he is now, Griffith continued that this senior government official enjoyed a close relationship with the said constable. So you want to put a junior constable in charge of the other half of the equipment. You don't control one half because you control the politically appointed members of the SSA. And now you want to put a constable who friendly with the Minister of National Security in charge of the TTPS part. So you trying to water down the checks and balance just like the PNM went into the Parliament and the Senate to gut the procurement legislation, to take away all the checks and balances from your money so them could procure without procurement. Was this an attempt by the government to politically influence the independence of the TTPS, a constitutionally independent organization? Was the transferring of the equipment by Jacob to the SSA the fulfillment of that political influence? These are legitimate questions that the public is surely asking, because whilst the Constitution affirms the independence of the TTPS, no such law applies to the SSA, which is a politically appointed organization. And then he continues, Keith Christopher Rowley, in the end, yesterday's press conference by Jacobs and Hines is a vindication because it confirmed what I, meaning Gary Griffith, said on the matter. I also see it as a rebuke of the statements made against me in Parliament by Keith Rowley, who may have, one, misled the Parliament when he suggested I had no authorization to purchase the intercept equipment, misled the Parliament when he said the government did not know about the purchase of the said equipment. I have correspondence to prove that they did, the government did know and authorize. That Rowley misled Parliament when he said that he ordered me, meaning Gary Griffith, to hand over the equipment, and I did so. Jacob confirmed that it was he, Jacob, who handed over the equipment less than 3 weeks after my contract at the TTPS ended. For doing this, Keith Rowley should surely be brought before the Privileges Committee. Well, that's a whole joke inside the Parliament. So you understand now, Mr. Corky, your country is in the hand of a despot. Your country is being led by a dictator who has no respect for the rule of law. He is spending your money willy-nilly, taking away resources from you and the people, whether you are black, Indian, Muslim, Hindu, Orisha, Baptist, Christian, Catholic, Rastafari. He's taken from everybody and given himself and his family and his recusal twins in the cabinet. So elections have consequences, my brother Corky. So to all the people out there, especially those who made the mistake to vote for Rowley, may God bless all you. And may the Lord put some light in your brains to understand that Trinidad and Tobago is more important than one miscreant named Keith Christopher Rowley. Corky, let's hear more about these developments. At the UNC Monday night virtual, we're going to cross. Everybody take out your pen and paper, pencil, take notes. Speeches, political speeches and research and information is not for entertainment. It's for your knowledge to share so that an electorate will not elect an idiot, a narcissist, a sicko like Keith Rowley ever again. Corky, my brother, let's cross to the UNC Monday night virtual.
Yes, sir.
Your mouth when you watch videos the last time. So stupid me to think that you would have prioritized a safe space for our children to return to school. In the United National Congress, they are not hyenas to us. They are not cockroaches and pests to be stamped out. They are children. They are our future. They are young children to be nurtured, to be loved, and to be developed. They are the talent and the future of Trinidad and Tobago. That is how we view them in the United National Congress. Former chair of the Children's Association advised that this term should have been used to help children readjust to physical school. Returning to physical school deserved proper planning, not a halfway reaction and some rubbish statement by a leader who does nothing more than dress up in fancy suits to mama guide the citizens. In 1989, the NAR government came up with a brilliant white paper to address violence in schools. Tutor President Devanand Sinanan is quoted as saying the plan was so good that it bridged the political divide. Do you know what else Sinanan said? He said the behavior in school is symptomatic of a deeper social reality that currently exists. We need to get to the root, and the root is not located in the school. What was noticeably missing from the conversation this week were other ministries. Where are social services, sport, youth affairs, community development, gender affairs, and culture? Addressing school violence must be done as a multi-ministry approach. One rarely wonders with this government. We really wonder where your head is at. On my way here tonight, I read two separate reports from two different media companies that two different schools had to send their children home today. So if we're not dealing with violence in schools, we're dealing with mold. Would you send your daughters, Keith Rowley, to a school where as they enter, they smell mold? Where was the budget allocation to maintain these schools for the last 2 years? You shut the door, didn't even open a window. Where is the money that you would have allocated for the last 2 years to maintain schools? That these children are walking into a school and it is clear that not even a window was open for the last 2 years, let alone proper maintenance. Anyways, I think we've spent enough time on Rowley tonight. There's just so much problems we could talk about. It's time to talk UNC. It is time to talk solutions, because that's what UNC is synonymous with, solutions. It's time to take our eyes off the rearview mirror and look ahead. Vision. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar, vision. Vision is knowing that children needed laptops 10 years before they needed it. Because she knew that the education in a backpack in 2022 meant laptops. Could you imagine? Sit for a moment, put all the politics aside, and sit for a moment and think. When COVID hit us in 2020 and forced us into online school, what would it have looked like had Kamla Prasad-Bissessar remained Prime Minister in 2015 and 2020? Every child entering school in Form 1 would have had a laptop. So you're looking at 7 years of Form 1 students receiving a laptop. What would that have looked like in 2020 when COVID forced our children into online school? For those of you who think PNM UNC are the same thing, that one tangible example, that's not something we're making up. That's not something we're promising that could never materialize. We gave the laptops. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar gave the laptops, and you know what she promised? That we would have extended the laptop program. Had Kamla Prasad-Bissessar been our Prime Minister for the last 7 years, I guarantee you the COVID situation would not have been the same. So don't tell me nothing about UNC PNM, same thing. Tangible. You could see it, you could touch it, you could feel it. Our children would have had laptops in their hands. That is how you address violence in schools. That is how. Leadership is understanding that children learn differently. When children struggle in classroom, science shows that they lash out. This is why UNC created the Color Me Orange program, which allowed persons a more hands-on approach at receiving their certifications. That is how you deal with violence in schools. And UNC understands that addressing violence in schools starts by addressing the lack of support at home. So when you remove something like the baby grant, you may think that it's a simple thing like the baby grant. But what you are doing is taking away an opportunity for a mother to have one less worry and one less stress. And when she is not stressed, she can pour positivity into her children. The leadership of United National Congress, our children will not be going back to school this week to face police officers patrolling with big guns. What patrolling with big guns? What message are we sending to our children when we send police for them? Had Kamla Persad-Bissessor been our Prime Minister, I can assure you that those officers would be dressed in plain clothes and would be going into schools with a football in hand, because we understood that children need to be nurtured. They need to be mentored. They need to have adults that would come alongside them and respect them. They need a space where they can learn how to appropriately express their feelings. Had we been in charge of this country's budget, we would invest in dealing with the trauma faced by both parent and child during the COVID pandemic. It is in this vein that I call on every single citizen to unite under the UNC umbrella. Our nation's children cannot endure another day of this callous leadership. I call on corporate Trinidad and Tobago. I call on every creed and race to join together to give our children an equal space. We will embrace our nation's children. We will show them warmth. The United National Congress commits to being the village for these children. We will raise our nation's children, and we will take back Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you, and I urge you to join with us as we put an end to violence in schools once and for all.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Want freedom.
Everybody crying out for democracy. Now it's time to take a stand. Yeah.
As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and
food
sisters,
rises,
walk together as one.
cost of living goes, and this government continues to mislead the public as we look at our society and our schools, and we see that nothing is being done. We at the UNC is always ready and willing to do the work. Coming to the platform tonight is a prominent attorney at law and a native born to San Fernando. He serves as a policy and strategy officer at our party's national executive, and also a previously distinguished himself as a UNC senator. Put your hand together for the powerful, the remarkable Mr. Sean Sobers.
This revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution.
Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people.
Good evening to the Honorable Political Leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessor of Senior Council. Good evening to members of both Houses of Parliament. Good evening to all those watching and listening to us via different media. And special salutations this evening to all members of the United National Congress faithful who make it their business to join us on all forms of broadcast and outreach. Your unwavering support invigorates our great party to continue the political fight for bread, peace, and justice. I am here this evening to put to you one statement. A statement that was made by an individual when he attempted to hoodwink you, to solicit your votes and your support in 2015. A statement that was put to you based upon questions on crime and criminality back in 2015. A statement made none other by Keith Christopher Rowley, where he indicated that the yardstick that we will use to measure our success in crime fighting is how you feel about your security. It is my intention this evening, subsequent to my presentation, to answer squarely that particular statement. I believe it is rhetorical in nature, and I suspect, based upon the last 7 years, you will feel the same way as I do, and as many of us do here in the United National Congress. More so, especially after the last Easter weekend, where we had so many murders, over 20 murders taking place in 5 days. And it was a time when a lot of us were fasting, a time of reflection, a time of believing in humanity. And we share that space in this multiplicity of life in Trinidad and Tobago, because we are during the month of Ramadan as well, where Muslim brothers and sisters are praying and fasting and reflecting as well, believing in humanity. And during that time, it was obscured by the level of bloodshed. But at no point in time did you hear from the administration. And why should you? This is the same administration under their current Minister of National Security who had the temerity to come out and tell you that he is not responsible for your safety. And when you think about it, the man is right, you know. Circumstances have changed. The environment is different. He doesn't need to solicit your votes. That was back in 2015. He already has you. They've already hoodwinked you. And so he could give you the bamboo and tell you exactly how he feels about you. That they are not responsible for your safety. And that coming at a point in time where we had so many murders taking place within this country during such a holy season, a mixture of Christianity and Islam in this country, and murders abound in Trinidad and Tobago. Editorials showing up in every single daily, speaking about Trinidad and Tobago being drenched in a sea of blood, drowning in crime. The blood of our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters continue to flow without a palatable response from this government. That we as a responsible opposition would have come to you on a number of occasions and indicated squarely to you that Trinidad and Tobago is literally burning by the acts of the criminal element. And Rowley and his band of misfits continue to fiddle while Trinidad burns. And you could see this being played out in every single editorial, in every single article that you flip through in the last couple of days. That we are again as a nation faced with unprecedented levels of crime, where petty larceny and theft turns into robbery and home invasions. And home invasions, unfortunately, but eventually turns into rape and murder. And still, no solution coming from this callous administration. Listen, let me tell you something. In my life, I try to be fair. I consider parity in every single thing that I do. So it is fair to me, or for me actually, to tell you tonight that there has been no solution proffered to you. But there have been some responses, some tidbits of advice that they give to you with respect to crime and crime fighting and whatnot. And let's run through some of those things this evening. So when it comes to robbery, the response to robbery is, listen, don't conduct any business in the night. Conduct all your business in the day. And if you have to conduct your business in the day, ensure that you hurry to your vehicle right after you conduct your business. And we all know, in the state of play in this country, that that piece of advice fails. Because they're coming to rob you during the day. They're not waiting for the cover of night. They're coming to assault you on the high streets within this country. In the full glare of the public, they're gunning people down. So their tidbit with respect to robbery, it holds no water. When it comes to domestic violence, they have a next piece of advice to give you. Choose the men in your life wisely. Know who you're bringing into your bedroom. That is the type of advice that they give to domestic violence victims, where you have scores of persons lining up on a daily basis seeking assistance from the court. And thank God that in this COVID pandemic period, the court has put certain mechanisms in place to deal with those issues, where persons can now pick up the phone or email the court, and immediately, as quickly and promptly as possibly, they will get a court date where their matter could be heard and ventilated. But the failure in the institution again lies at the feet of this PNM administration, because you will get a court date, you, your victim, who has been assaulted by a potential respondent in this matter, you will get the court date, you will be present virtually or otherwise, the court will be there, the court staff, the magistrate, and everybody else will be there, but the respondent will not be there. Why? Because he will not have been served. He don't know anything about no court date, so he will continue to beat on you when you reach back home. And the failure to serve the summons is squarely a defeat, unfortunately, at a department of the TTPS who has been crying out time and time again for assistance and for more resources from the government. But what do? Absolutely nothing. They continue to give you advice. Mind who you're bringing into your bedroom. That is the advice. And whilst all of this is taking place within the last couple of days, murder after murder, bloodshed after bloodshed, you have the Prime Minister, who's the chair of the National Security Council, nowhere to be found. He in Barbados. And the Minister of National Security, nowhere to be found. Up to now, we don't know where he gone. Questions in the Parliament about where he gone, he can't answer. Nobody wants to answer that for you. How much you spend, who they take, where they go on, where they line, what they do, nothing. That is the level of governance that they give to you. But when the Prime Minister returned, he as well had the gall and temerity to tell you, well, listen, this thing about crime, we asked him about that for. You didn't know that Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society? What rock you living under? Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society. What is the message that the Prime Minister, the chair of the National Security Council, is sending to our foreign and international partners when he, as the Prime Minister, is telling you that Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society? What confidence does that give visitors coming to Trinidad and Tobago to spend $1? What confidence does that give investors coming to Trinidad and Tobago when the Prime Minister no less is telling you that Trinidad and Tobago is a violent society? And when we tell you, based upon statements like that they've thrown in the towel, that they want power without responsibility, you see it as plainly and literally as the light of day. That Trinidad and Tobago was not a violent society when he was then opposition leader between 2010 and 2015. You never hear him say that. Spewing vitriol all over the place. He could never tell you that because it would not have been true. But between 2015 and 2022, when he is the chair of the National Security Council, Trinidad and Tobago has become a violent place. And wrapped into that press conference, he come quick to tell you about CCTV cameras. He had to tell you about that. Because he know those persons who were lined up in the media was going to ask him a question about that. Because unfortunately, during that same bloody week, an individual's body was found dumped at the heights of Aripo. The same heights of Aripo that the UNC led by Kamla Persad-Bissessar had a vigil, a candlelight vigil at the bottom of the heights of Aripo, calling on the government to do certain things, to provide CCTV cameras, to light up the place, to have increased patrols, so that particular place would no longer be referred nefariously as a dumping ground. But weeks and months after that, you still come and find a body there. So he come quick to tell you, listen, well, here what's going on. We're procuring CCTV cameras and we're going to fix the cameras and we're doing this and we're going to do that. And day after day, week after week, month after month, the UNC has stood up in the parliament, to the platform, to the pavement, to tell the public that if you walk into any police station within this country, you're going to walk into the charge room, you'll see this big TV screen, and the TV screen is blank. That is the screen that is supposed to show you the cameras within the region, within the district, and it is blank. We've been saying that, echoing that time and time again. And now he comes to tell you about CCTV cameras for the police service. He has sufficient CCTV cameras and cameras to give the police service to Mako UNC supporters and persons protesting fuel hike prices last week. Peaceful protest. They have enough camera for that. But to protect persons from being dumped like garbage by the heights of Aripo, he has no cameras to give them. And somehow, along this path with respect to solutions, eventually, after blaming you for not listening to them, he will find some way to tether that to the UNC and Kamla. That Kamla responsible for robbery, rape, and crime in this country. Kamla responsible for murder. And after you hear from Keith Rowley when he returned, you're still waiting with bated breath to hear from Hines. So Hines came back in the country and he had a press conference yesterday. And unfortunately, because we are responsible opposition, I had to listen intently to what he had to say. Hines is a person, personally, he doesn't disappoint me. I have extremely low confidence in anything he does. So, true to form yesterday, right? So yesterday, while some of you, unfortunately, may have thought that he was coming to talk to you about crime and crime plan and crime solution and thing, I had no machination at all. He came and he spoke to you about Pegasus, which we know as Pegasus, right? So he come to tell you about the software, and he come to tell you about the different hats that he wore in his very smug manner about being Minister of National Security and Joint Select Committee with National Security Responsibility and this and that and the other. And all over the world it has spy equipment. And in none of those countries in the modern world, no one has ever come out and spoken out against the government with respect to the usage of spyware. Let me tell you something, that is a lie. A cursory glance, for those of you who know what cursory means, a 5-year-old basically Googling spyware, you will see several countries that spoke out against the use of spyware being utilized by government administrations, not in the way in which it was intended to. So a cursory glance, you would see Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Estonia, Finland, Germany, Hungary, India. A cursory glance, Israel, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Morocco, Panama, Palestine. A 5-year-old Googling will see Poland, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Togo, Uganda, Ukraine, United Arab Emirates. A 1-year-old doing a little Google search will see the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Yemen. All of these countries, persons have spoken out against the illegal use of spyware. And Hines went on to talk about the fact that, in his opinion, or as far as he is aware, no politician ever got involved or interfered with respect to interception and spyware. But you have the Commissioner of Police, ex-Commissioner of Police, coming out and indicating to the public something to the contrary. Well, listen, he was coerced by a senior government official to put a constable to be in charge of the spyware. Who are we to believe? Who are we to believe? Hines further went on to indicate, because he was reading from an expert report, right? He had an expert report in front of him. And the expert report indicated that when Kamla Prasad-Bissessar in 2009 spoke about spyware, the ramifications of that was that there was a loss of confidence and blah, 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 blah. International partners and whatnot. And in true PNM fashion, because we challenged them in the parliament, anytime they bring a document and they tell you about expert report, we ask them for the same thing. Call the name of the expert. They can't do that. Cite the report. They can't do that. Because in most occasions, and in most instances, it's themselves going in the corner, scribbling on a piece of paper, and coming up under parliamentary privilege, and telling you about expert report. Well, let me tell you something. It is on the Hansard of this country's parliament that your leader, back in 2009, then in the government, indicated categorically that Kamla Prasad-Bissessar did absolutely nothing wrong when she then indicated that the Manning administration was utilizing spyware illegally. So, in this instance, we must agree with Kid Rowley back in 2009. He went on to indicate, that is Hines, that the equipment was purchased without National Security Council approval and cabinet approval, and that they had no idea that this equipment was purchased by whoever, and possibly the TTPS and whatnot and whatnot. This is a situation where something as sensitive and dangerous as spy software has landed in the country, and the National Security Council didn't know anything about it, and the cabinet didn't give any approval and didn't know anything about it. You are supposed to be on that press conference talking about an investigation, if that what you say is true. But you talk nothing about investigation. So it's cool for the right hand to do something and the left hand don't know anything about it under PNM administration. He went on yesterday as well to talk about the fact, and this one I agree with him on, right? That it is obvious that the government of Trinidad and Tobago is not utilizing spyware. Clearly, I agree, because if they were utilizing spyware on criminals, the crime rate wouldn't be that which it is today. The amount of murders that we have wouldn't be what it is today. So you're not using the spyware on criminal elements. You're using the spyware on everybody else. And then he concludes his press conference by indicating categorically that Kamla Prasad-Bissessar must produce evidence, or else, in his words, be condemned by all of us as being reckless and dangerous to the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago for the comments she made. Let me tell you something on that. By your own admissions, you've indicated that the spyware is here. Whether it's Pegasus, Pegasus 2.0, Pegasus Lite, same great taste, different ingredients, it is here, right? You can't come now and say she needs to produce evidence. You've produced the evidence for her. If there's anyone who stood in a public place, the parliament in particular, and gave a song and dance of conspiracy to murder journalists in this country, something dubbed Emailgate, where not one shred of evidence was produced, that was Keith Rowley. You had the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the FBI, Homeland Security, Google, Yahoo, and everybody else in between coming out and telling the country and the world at large that that was a lie. So let me tell you something, Ethelbert. If there's anybody who we need as a country to condemn by all of us for being reckless and dangerous for the well-being of Trinidad and Tobago, for the comments they made, is Keith Rowley, not Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close here this evening, based upon all that I have said, all that has been presented to you, you must agree with me emphatically that you do not feel safe. And if that is the matriculation that you have to measure Keith Rowley on, as the chair of the National Security Council, as the Prime Minister of this country, as the head of the government, it is time for you to say emphatically to them that you are fed up, that they all need to go. Hines has to go. Young has to go. Tial Singh has to go. Al-Rawi has to go. Imbert has to go. They need to call an election and give a fresh mandate to the only political party led by Ms. Kamla Persad-Bissessar who could bring back good governance in Trinidad and Tobago and restore confidence on an international level. Thank you very much.
This revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people.
Sean, I will want to agree with you 100%. As the crime in our small island continue to rise, Mr. Hines tells us it's not him to blame. The safety of our island is not the duty of this government. Then whose duty it is to keep us safe? I really wonder. Under this PNM government, it's sad. Our next speaker is a person that everyone is very familiar with within the UNC and a wide nation. As the chairman and a foundation member of the UNC, a man of the people, he continues to distinguish himself as the best member of Parliament for Oropouche West. No other than, it's my privilege to welcome to the UNC virtual platform our loving MP, Dave Tanku.
Now it's time to take a stand, yeah. Come on, as we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping this creeping.
Thank you, Councillor Whitney, for that great introduction. Political leader of the United National Congress, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar, fellow presenters tonight, members of the audience here and tuned in on the various social media platforms, my brothers and sisters all, good night. It is said that the only thing needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. You see, when you do nothing, you send a message to the evildoer that the damage that they are causing is acceptable, and that empowers them to do even more evil. And that is where we are today. For the past 6.5 years, our beloved country has been existing under a cloud of darkness, where everywhere you turn, people are suffering from unemployment and poverty, as the hacker told us earlier, from murders and rapes and robberies, as Sean just told us, from poor access to health care, to education and social support, as Marsha raised with us just now, from the worst roads and drainage infrastructure ever, We are losing local and foreign direct investment daily as businesses flee from Trinidad and Tobago. That dark cloud, ladies and gentlemen, that has blighted this country is this vindictive, corrupt regime led by Keith Rowley, Colm Imbert, Rohan Sinanan, Stuart Young, and this whole PNM government. And while they run in and out of cabinet approving billions in expenditure for their friends, family, and financiers, we have children in this country who cannot afford to go to school because their parents cannot afford to buy shoes, cannot afford to pay for transport, cannot afford to buy food for them. So when Imbert boasts that the economy rebounded by $5 billion in 2 quarters during the same period last year that we are talking about, did you feel that? Did you see that? Do you think that the person struggling to make ends meet, to find food for their families, do you think they felt it? You think they felt any improvement in the quality of their lives? You see, ladies and gentlemen, you simply cannot trust this government to tell you the truth. Worse than that, they are digging out your eyes in front of you. And Trinis, instead of reacting, you're jamming still. Over the last 2 weeks, a minister of government boasted about spending $15 million of your money to earn $2.7 million. Boasting about throwing away more than $12 million of your hard-earned taxpayers' money so he and his friends could get a taste of carnival. Taste of carnival, why poor people, children, can't get a taste of food. And Trinis, nothing. You're jamming still. $400 million thrown away by NGC, and the Prime Minister said nothing wrong with that. And Trinis, you're jamming still. As a country, we must do better. Enough is enough. More than 2 years ago, the head of the Office of Procurement Regulator warned this country that as much as $5.2 billion in state contracts is lost every single year in corruption and mismanagement because of the failure of this government to implement the procurement legislation. That legislation was passed way back in 2015 by a Kamla Persad-Bissessar administration. And up to today, this vindictive bad mind government would not implement it. Ask yourself why. Why would a government refuse to implement legislation designed to block corruption, to ensure value for money, to ensure proper accounting practice, to ensure on-time delivery and transparency in contracts? But let me put that into perspective. $5.2 billion over the last 6.5 years works out to $34 billion in corruption, wastage, and mismanagement under this PNM government to date. And yet they refuse to implement the law. Ask yourself why. So it is not that this government has no money, ladies and gentlemen. The money is there. They're spending it by the millions and the hundreds of millions. They're just not spending it on you. Tonight, I call on you, citizens, to demand that Colm Imbert implement the original procurement legislation now. Because you know, if this implementation was done, if this legislation had been implemented a few years ago, this government would not have to be borrowing the kind of money they have been borrowing. They would not have to be selling off state assets left, right, and center. They would not have to be introducing tax after tax on citizens, and they would not have to be withdrawing billions from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. You know, this Heritage and Stabilization Fund was created to provide an economic and a financial buffer during difficult circumstances. But within 1 year of coming into government, within 1 year of Imbert assuming office, he attacked the savings in the HSF, extracting $627 million between 2016 and 2017 to fund his government's quandarmania and to prop up the foreign exchange holdings. For him, this was free money. In 2020, to fund the election expenses, Imbert came to the parliament and changed the legislation to give him greater access to more money from the HSF. And then we saw the feeding frenzy of Call Me Imbert at the HSF. In every one of the 7 consecutive quarters between March 2020 and September 2021, Imbert dipped his hands into the HSF and extracted millions of US dollars from our nation's savings. He saw no need then to rebuild the economy, to create an environment which would attract direct foreign investment or even motivate local investors into investing in business opportunities in this country. Imbert saw no need to deal with the absolute loss of confidence in the domestic economy that forced international credit rating agencies to downgrade the country. He saw no need to create new revenue streams, especially to generate the much-needed foreign exchange. You see, whenever he needed money, all he had to do was send a note. All he had to do was send a note to this compliant board of directors, whom he himself had appointed. And he had millions and hundreds of millions of your dollars to spend. And he did that over and over and over. According to his annual report for 2021, the Heritage and Stabilization Fund lost almost 30% of its value since 2020 because of the level of withdrawals by Call Me Imbert. So what says Imbert? That's what the money is there for. But the Heritage and Stabilization Fund is an investment fund with money invested in a series of local and foreign products. It is not a bank with millions of money sitting in cash, sitting in a vault somewhere. So when Imbert writes his friend, the chairman, asking for another fix like a drug addict, instruments have to be accessed, investments have to be broken, and revenue disrupted, and there's a cost for doing that. But so what? So what if the country loses hundreds of millions of US dollars because Imbert hands sticky? Imbert does not care. All he cares about is the next fix. Since March 2020, Imbert has withdrawn $1.873 billion or $12 billion TT from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. You know, if he had implemented the procurement legislation 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, if he had done that, he would have blocked corruption, mismanagement, and vice of upwards of $10 million. Sorry, upwards of $10 billion. That would have freed up enough money so that he didn't have to go to HSF to meet his obligations. Just saving that money would have been sufficient. But then, how would their friends, family, and financiers eat our food if not from the mouths of our citizens? You see, ladies and gentlemen, there's no motivation. There's no motivation to create solutions when all Imbert was required to do is pick the pockets of taxpayers. That is completely unacceptable. And you know, on the way here today, I saw a newspaper article in which the governor of the central bank, the governor of the HSF was boasting that the HSF was edging towards $5.62 billion US dollars. It was edging up to $5.62 billion. Well, I don't know who he's trying to fool. Because in 2010, when Kamla Persad-Bissessar took over government, the HSF had $3.6 billion. When she left government in 2015, you know how much it had? $5.655 billion US dollars. And this man now talking about it edging up to $5.62 billion. Where he from? It was $5.655 billion when Call Me Imbert got there. It's not edging up. It's been cut down. This raid on the HSF needs to stop. And it gets worse, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, the government announced its intention to pursue the compulsory raising of retirement age of citizens from 60 to 65. The Minister of Finance told this country that the NIB was not in crisis because it had enough money to last for 22 years before becoming exhausted at its present rate. But this is a major cause for concern because the last NIB report revealed that in 2021, the board needed to withdraw $1 billion from its investment instruments to meet the deficit between contributions and expenditure. So the NIB is cashing in its investments to pay bills, but to call me but the fund is not in crisis. This compulsory raising of the retirement age means that now persons will have to stay in their jobs for 5 more years before they can access their full retirement benefits. To start with, this means that the promotion for existing employees will be drastically cut because persons will not be vacating their jobs. No promotions and no job opportunities. The government's logic is that some of the potential claimants will die between the age of 60 and 65, so they won't be alive to claim their benefits. They believe that people will contribute more to the same pool that they will access. That's their logic. But less people will draw down their retirement benefits because they have to continue to work, so the NIB will save that money rather than pay to beneficiaries. So the government's answer to building a greater national insurance fund from which to pay citizens benefits, citizens who contribute to it, is to deny them access to their funds. That making sense? Interestingly, the government also admitted that the inclusion of the informal sector into the NIB scheme would add little to that fund because it's mainly low-income workers. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that the next step the government is going to introduce is to raise the contribution rates. Once more, it is current employees and business owners that will be asked to again fund the increased contributions to this fund. So you have been asked, you have been denied the opportunity to retire at 60 and simultaneously being asked to pay even more as your cost of living rises. This makes no practical sense, but the government going ahead, they're rushing ahead with it. What has become painfully obvious is the continued intellectual laziness of the Minister of Finance. The number of employees contributing to the fund fell by 70,800 persons between 2015 and 2021. More than that, the number of employers also fell by 1,548. It takes no genius, ladies and gentlemen, to realize that the way to increase the value of contribution is not to penalize workers and employers, but to increase the number of workers in permanent, well-paid jobs, raising the number of employers as well contributing to the system. That is not rocket science. If you want more money into the system, create more employment, add to the base. That is common sense. But you see, common sense is not common to the PNM. It is similarly common sense that the government needs to do. What the government needs to do then is to create an environment for confidence in the economy so that investors will feel the need to come here and invest. We cannot leave the NIB alone, ladies and gentlemen, because citizens must have confidence that after they retire, after decades of employment, that their investments is there waiting for them so that they can continue to maintain their lives. They must have confidence that when they suffer an injury or loss, that their contributions that they have made over their lifetime will be available to meet their financial obligations. But the very actions of this Minister of Finance has brought the NIB into disrepute at a point in time when we need confidence in the NIB. You see, the law governing the NIB is very clear. The board of directors of the NIB is comprised of representatives of labor, business, and government. Importantly, the law says that the person who sits as chairman must be, and I quote, a person who in the opinion of the minister is independent of the government, business, and labor. This requirement was put in place to ensure balance on the board, but on January 24th this year, this Minister of Finance appointed businessman Patrick Ferreira as chairman of the NIB. Ferreira had served as a government representative on the very same NIB board since 2017 and up to days before his appointment. So how is it that he could be a businessman representing government on one day, and on the very next day, he's suddenly independent of both business and government? Who this minister fooling, ladies and gentlemen? This violates the law. It is my view that it violates the law. But instead of covering the breach when it existed. Instead of treating with the issue when it was raised, the minister simply disregarded that. What that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that we likely have an illegal chair sitting in the office of chairman of the NIB, making financial decisions with your money, decisions which could now be challenged in a court of law. Colin Burt has introduced chaos in the NIB at a time when we needed confidence in the NIB. This matter is now before the courts, thanks to a very public-spirited young man. But what the minister's conduct has done is to raise a red flag about his intentions as to what he wants to do with the National Insurance Board. This Minister of Finance, as I close, ladies and gentlemen, needs to stop playing Russian roulette with this $31 billion social security organization called the NIB. It is your taxpayers' money. He needs to keep his hands off of it. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I call on citizens to join us. Enough is enough. We cannot depend on the government to protect our interests. The United National Congress, led by our political leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar, will continue to fight for you. We will continue to hold this government to account, ladies and gentlemen. Join us. I remind you that the only thing needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Join us, ladies and gentlemen. Enough is enough. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Political leadership of the United National Congress, like a rock. First woman Prime Minister, first woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPB Plus, solid everywhere.
Thank you all very much. Good evening, UNC family. I am very, very happy to join with you all on here at our headquarters, and of course, all of you have signed in live. Thank you very much as we return to our virtual report. I know we took a little break in observance of Easter celebrations last Monday, but we didn't stop working, and so we're back to share with you. So many things have happened, so many more will happen, and we will continue to share and to report. But first, let me thank very much our two brilliant young chairpersons, Karim Baird, give him a round of applause. Councillor Whitney, Stevenson, thank you so much. And all the speakers who came before me, Marsha, as bright and brilliant as ever, thank you, Marsha. Tahaka, thank you very much, brilliant economist. Sean Sobas, great lawyer, bright young mind, and of course our MP for Urupuch West, MP Tanku, thank you so much. So whilst we are gathered here in small numbers, there are others who are with us. Let me recognize our Deputy Leader, Jalen John. I recognize also Councillor Nicholas, our new Councillor, Rajesh, Kamraj, sorry. These things happen sometimes, but the love is still there. We recognize you and others who are with us. Our PRO Kirk Mego has joined us tonight as well, and some others who are with us all the time. Our General Secretary, Peter Kanhai, who make things happen. DJ Tank, thank you again for the sound system. MP Ravi is here as well, party organizer. Darren and Michael from the comms team, thank you very much. And if I didn't call your name, no, you're in my heart always. Thank you for joining us this evening. We are still in the month of Ramadan, so we say Ramadan Mubarak. And I see that the government has declared May 2nd as a public holiday for Eid celebrations on the 2nd of May, which will be a Monday as well. So we'll talk about it, yes. And I want to say thanks, very special thanks, I celebrated a great birthday, a milestone recently. And I was so inspired and overwhelmed by the messages I received, by the pictures, loving, kind words. Thank you all of you. Thank you so much for your messaging. Thank you, Masha. Well, age is only a number, you know that. Thank you very much. And also I want to thank the UNC family and activists. They came out in their numbers on Tuesday. Remember that, the first day of school? I want to thank them so much because we took a decision, enough is enough. And we came out in our numbers throughout the length and breadth of the country. Over 30 locations, activists were there. Now, we could have brought everyone in one group, as they say. But I thought it was more important for us to be spread out throughout the country. We did not advertise that. It was barely by word of mouth. And some phone calls, of course, as the police TTPS has reported, some phone numbers for mobilization. And yet people came out because we didn't want a massive thing to shut down the country. We were very concerned about having a peaceful protest, very peaceful protest, but standing up for people in this country. And then again, yesterday I had the distinct pleasure, really felt very honored to attend a function at Cedrus. A very long drive, I will tell you, way down and back, but beautiful to drive along. Lovely place in Cedrus, lovely people. I want to thank our councillor there, Shankar Tilak Singh, for organizing the event. And I want to thank the Indian High Commissioner and his staff, who also graced the event and donated a really brilliant, beautiful statue of Mahatma Gandhi in commemoration, of course, was Indian Arrival Day, but also recognizing that Cedrus was one of the landing spots for persons who came out of India. So we've had quite a lot of activity and more to come, as I say. So that protest, let us remember, when we say enough is enough. After 2 years of our children being left in a wilderness by the PNM, Marsha talked about it tonight, about the children and the lockdown of the schools and with the COVID and so on. They came out and on that morning, they were summoned to come back out to school. We began our peaceful protests and so on. And you know what is very interesting? A lot of people believe politics is about being on Facebook, that politics is being on YouTube, that politics is about going on TV station Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or radio stations. They believe that. But the only party that put warm boots on the ground was the United National Congress on Tuesday in protest. So there were people out there, and look, it's a democracy. They're free to campaign in the way they want to. But really the way that you campaign and the way you work for people and for people is with people, that you must be there with warm bodies on the ground, not just on the screen. And so I am proud of the UNC for the efforts on Tuesday, for the enough is protest. We say we are UNC and we are UNC and proud, very much so. So today I want to share some facts with you. Not FAX, by the way. Some FACTS. Because we're in a season here about spy war and spies and lies and law-abiding citizens. The latest with the government on this matter, and spying spree, is a very conflicting statements by the Prime Minister. If nothing else should tell you that they are being untruthful, it's a mere fact that the Prime Minister cannot get his stories right. Each time he speaks, he contradicts himself. He's uncertain of which version is reality that he wishes to express to the population every time he speaks. And you have had several of them. We are not closing on Petrotrin. Let me repeat. in case you were closing your fridge door, opening your, whatever you were doing to your fridge door, we are not closed down Petrotrin. And soon thereafter, all shut down of Petrotrin. And you will have many examples of those where he lied, contradicted, conflicted himself. Many examples. I know Douglar Politics and Victor Roberts and Marsha, and they do a great job in exposing some of these contradictions and lies. Tonight, I want to deal with the issue of spyware, the issue of spying, because here again, we have seen the conflicting statements and the contradictory ones. Before I talk further on it, let us hear Please listen, look at it.
No law enforcement or private entity in Trinidad and Tobago is known to be in possession of Pegasus, nor are there records to indicate its purchase by any local entity.
In confirming that the government has spyware at a political meeting in Diego Martin last night, Dr. Rowley said it is being used to monitor the criminal elements.
And today, in this technological world, if the government has bought equipment for the SSA to be able to know what the gang leaders and the criminals are doing in this country because they do it on the phone, the best tool for the criminals in this country, anywhere in the world for that matter, is that cell phone system.
In his own words. First in Diego Martin, he said, yes, they have spyware, but you only have to be worried if you're a criminal. He comes to the parliament on Friday and says, as you saw it yourself, no, we have no spyware. So what is the truth? Raul, we do not believe a word you say, because every time you speak, you lie and contradict yourself. First, we have the software. That was on the Tuesday meeting in Diego Martin. And he said, don't worry if you're not a criminal. Then he came, he said, he came to Parliament, man. So is he misleading the Parliament as well? That is something we will have to consider, to file a privilege motion in the Parliament that Rowley is misleading the Parliament. He's misleading the Parliament. He comes and he then says, they have it, but it is with SSA. Then we heard the former Commissioner of Police. They said he procured it illegally. And then we saw Acting Commissioner Jacobs with another story today. So which one is a true story? I want to ask the Prime Minister, look, sort yourself out, please. Before you talk to the population, sort yourself out, get your story straight. Then you come to talk to the people. And Prime Minister, if you cannot be truthful on small matters, what can you be truthful on? You know what? If you cannot tell the people the truth, you have to go. Rowley has to go. He has to go. Let's back up on this spying and interception. They call it a nice word, interception of communications, which is what? Spying. McQueen, yes, thank you, Councillor. In 2010, when we went into government, we found out that massive spying was taking place by the SSA and by a grouping known as the SIA. And the SIA had no legal authority whatsoever. It was set up like a, what is called tontamaku, to spy on people, to do all kinds of things, Sean. No legal authority. And then you had the SSA as well doing the spying. They were spying on their own people. Of course, they were spying on us in the UNC. They were spying on judges, the judiciary, magistracy, journalists. All of that was there in the records that we found. But we understood and realized that if you have to do this to catch criminals, you have to do it in a legal manner. You have to use the law of the country. And so we looked at laws in other parts of the world, and we brought to the Parliament a bill which became known as the Interception of Communications Act, which set out the ways in which you can intercept communications, either with a warrant or without a warrant. This law gave powers to intercept communications to 3 officers. 3. 1, the Commissioner of Police. Not a constable, the Commissioner of Police. 2, the Chief of Defense Staff. And 3, the Director of the SSA. These were the 3 officers authorized by law to conduct interception. But then they would only do so within certain circumstances, with a warrant and without a warrant. We jump ahead now. We come to 2020. Understand and remember, only 3 authorized legal persons can do this intercept. What did the PNM do? As Tanku mentioned tonight, they came 2020 to amend the procurement legislation, to water it down, to allow all kinds of wrong things to take place. They did the same thing with the Interception of Communications Act. In 2020, they came to Parliament and passed a law which became known as Act 13 of 2020. And you know what they did? They passed it with a simple majority, meaning their own majority. Because when we had passed the law, the parent law, we passed it with a special majority, and the PNM had supported it then, back in 2010. They came to change that law, and I'll tell you what they came to change it to do in 2020. To allow interception of communications, in other words, allow spying of any data that was stored before that act in 2010 came into effect. So they could go back to Thy Kingdom Come, any data stored, which means your WhatsApp, your text messages, your emails, your phones, any data stored, they can now use it. Saying they're doing it legally, but I am still of the view that was totally against the Constitution and the law, because you passed it with a simple majority. Look at this video clip, please, about that amendment that they made.
Government stands accused of slaughtering the Constitution as opposition and independent senators call for justifiable reasons. The 3/5 majority requirement on the Interception of Communications Bill was removed.
This is a defining moment in our history, Madam President, where we are standing here, where a bill left here with a constitutional majority and came back to us with a simple majority. Madam President, this government is out of control. This is not a democratic state anymore. This is turning into a dictatorship.
The written advice on the removal of the requirement came from a senior counsel the Attorney General called one of the best constitutional lawyers in TNT.
Mr. Hussein, in producing his opinion, has confirmed that subject to certain amendments of the bill, that we are fully permitted to amend the bill by removing the requirement for a 3/5 majority in Clause 2 and therefore the preamble.
It's the first time in her 5 years as independent senator this senior counsel has seen this happen.
I don't appreciate the explanations, so I don't understand. Perhaps they are beyond me. Perhaps I don't understand the explanations given for this. I call it what it is, a turnaround. And with all due respect, I do not appreciate that sort of practice.
And was it such a wise move by Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi to tell the House the amendments came from the Director of Public Prosecutions and a legal opinion of Queen's Counsel Edward Jenkins, who said the act is open to criticism?
I heard the Honorable Attorney General speak about the DPP and what the DPP wants and this kind of thing. Not only that, what the QC hired to advise the DPP wants. With all due respect, let us not descend to that. That is like when a junior attorney stands up at the bar table and instead of citing a case, says, my senior says this is what the law is. This is the highest court of the land. Let us maintain our standards.
While the senators themselves want to know what the experts had to say.
We would like the Attorney General of this country to come clean and to table now, today, before any other senator speaks, the constitutional opinion rendered to him and the government by Mr. Fayad Hussein.
The fact that the Attorney General went to quite pains to outline his argument in terms of the advice he's gotten from Mr. Fayad Hussein, to me underscores what I would support in terms of Senator Mack's call for the opinion by Mr. Hussein to be provided for us to take up a more clinical look at it.
The bill in its proposed form carries many concerns from senators who see it as an intrusion on rights, potential for the abuse of power, an assault on journalists, with one questioning whether the removal of the special majority requirement had become a trend for the Attorney General. Urvashi Tawari, Rupnarayan, TV6 News.
That amendment did was to give access to the government, the state, to store the data retroactively, backwards. That is any data before the 2010 law came into effect. So whereas in 2010 we passed a law with a special majority, that 2010 law gave the state the power to intercept communications after the law took effect December 17, 2010. The PNM came, they changed the law to give themselves access to stored data, which is any information before 17 December 2010. Based on definitions in that new amendment, they can access, as I said, text messages, WhatsApp messages, phone calls, banking information, emails, any of those that are current and any that has been stored. I remember I mentioned to you before, when we came into office in 2010, there was a massive amount of stored data of illegal interceptions that were taking place by the SSA. Now, I heard Mr. Hines, talking about the fact that there are judicial protections for interceptions. Well, Hines, if you don't know the law, let me tell you what the law is. There is no red tape to intercept without a warrant. There is no judicial protection to intercept without a warrant. So when we had our peaceful protests, as I mentioned before, they could macro all our phones, yes, your computers and WhatsApps and so on, to find out where we were going to protest, where and when and how. And then they couldn't even get it right. They couldn't even get it right. Because when they sent out a special confidential memo, we had over 30 venues, they were just able to put 3 or 4. So even when they're spying, sometimes they can't even macro properly. So they went out there. This type of evidence gathering cannot be used in court. So they can intercept, they can macro without a warrant, but what is the difference? It cannot be used as evidence in a court of law. That's the status of the law now. But they could use it for other nefarious means. Because if they spy on people, macro in people without a court warrant, without the protection of the warrant, then they can share it with a political directorate. That is what they can do, and that is what they did with respect to our Enough is Enough protests. When they shared this memo, giving a phone number of someone, says a UNC activist phone number, who was making phone calls about a protest. How you know that? How you know it was a UNC activist? I said I didn't know the number myself. How did you know? How do you find that phone number? What did you use to macro that phone number? And how many other persons you were macroing for that protest and other things? Then I saw an article only a few days ago where they said a UNC MP made phone calls to cause a protest to take place in the Beetham. How you know that? How did you know that? Whose phones are you macroing and how are you macroing? And then you come to tell this country, believe you have no macroing going on? How did you know it was a UNC MP? And is that even true? That story was there just 2 days ago about the UNC MP talking to people in the Beetham and so on to protest. So look, I say there is no red tape, Hines. There is no judicial protection for spying without a warrant. And it is happening. I've given you 2 instances. One, with respect to our protests, and 2, this story in the newspaper a few days ago about some UNC MP talking to people in the Beetham to protest upon the Beetham. So the evidence gathering cannot be used in court, as I said, that kind of evidence. It is only intelligence, but it can be used, understand, by the government against anyone they think is an opponent, anyone they believe is opposed to them, they can use it. That is without a warrant. The only time you get the judicial protection is when you intercept with a warrant, that you have to go and get a warrant from the court, go before a judge. And only then can you use the intercepted evidence in a court of law. So don't come and lie to the country, Hines, and say there is judicial protection. No, there is none when you're macroing without warrants. There is absolutely no protection to private citizens in this country. And I call you out on that, Hines. I call you out. And up to now, you have not answered me, you know. I called on Hines to explain to our country the role of a person by the name of Constable Clement in the inception of communications. Not a word. Oh, opposition leader misleading. Oh, we lying. Whatever, all the bad things. But you have not answered. What is his role? Because our information was that national security and others were being pressured to share intercepted information with Constable Clement. You know that's a crime too. One is if you intercept without the proper mechanisms, that's a crime. But if you share the information with someone else, that is also a crime. So what is the role of Constable Clement? Has he been given access to store data, to macro data, to spy data? Does he have access to tell us? We're waiting for your response, Minister. And I want to make it very clear. A constable cannot act on his own volition to intercept communications nor to receive it. That is the law. No constable, no corporal, no sergeant, no ACP, COP, no DCOP, none have the power to intercept communications without the express authority of the Commissioner of Police. So if you're out there on your own, if you're intercepting or receiving intercepted information and you're breaking the law, if the constable has no written authority of the Commissioner of Police, he can only proceed to intercept by getting the warrant, as I said. That's the only other way. If the interception cannot be justified under any of these two grounds, then it is what? Totally illegal and against the law. So if that constable does not have the written authority of the Commissioner, nor does he get a warrant from the High Court judge, and he proceeds to intercept or receive intercepted information. That's the point I'm making, One is that he could be personally doing it. But two is when they do it, they give it to him. Remember, the former commissioner said they were pressuring him to put a constable to do certain things with intercepted information. So what is the role of Constable Clement? If you have done any of this, that is to say, actual interception, or if you have received intercepted information, you can be fined up to $1 million and 15 years in imprisonment. It is very important then that the government clears the role of this constable or any other such junior officer. I told you on a previous occasion, there are specific persons who have been spied on using technology. If the communication being intercepted is disclosed to government officials, as I say, that is also a crime. These persons that have been spied upon, such as government ministers, judges, magistrates, state board directors, MPs, senators, opposition, trade unions, and many others are being spied upon. Is it in the interests of national security? Are they all criminals? That's why they're being spied upon. Are they being monitored because they're committing some kind of serious crime? Well, the answer is obviously no. Now, they're trying to bait me. Remember that PNM doesn't play fair. They never play fair. Let us be real. These fellows would convince you that the sky is purple just to justify their actions when they need to. They will lie and lie and lie and more lies. Can you imagine the lengths they will go through in order to spy on law-abiding citizens? How many of their political opponents are they spying on? Do you really think it is beyond the PNM to use this tool for their own political survival? They have done worse before, and to be frank, nothing surprises me with this bunch of clowns and this circus they're running. Minister Hines is also in breach of the law, and I'll come to that in a moment. But I'm making the point that they're saying that we are misleading people and we are saying everybody cannot tell us the truth. They will not tell us the truth. They will lie. They will convince you, as I say, this sky is purple or green. Justify their actions. Minister Hines is in breach of the law. He wants to come and speak about law and judicial, but you're breaking the law, Hines, and it will not be the first time. Under Section 24 of the Interception of Communication Act, to be accountable to the people, the Minister of National Security must lay every year in the Parliament an annual report of the activities under that Interception Act. Every year, they lay that annual report in the Parliament under Section 24 of that Interception of Communications Act. The last report this government laid was in 2017. What year are we in now? 18 gone, 19 gone, 20 gone, 21 gone. 4 years, no reports. No reports, and I'll tell you more because the last report they filed is even more eye-opening. So they breached the law. Hence, you are breaking the law, and we will take you to court to force you to file those reports in the Parliament. Under Section 13, that must be laid in the Parliament on the operations of the SSA. Again, as I say, Heinz has failed and or neglected and omitted to follow the law of the land. Let me tell you, for the year 2016 to 17, that one report, there have been 755,276 interceptions. In 1 year, 750,276 interceptions of speech and data. 700 and more thousands. 750,000, Kirk is saying. 750,000 interceptions. And you want to come to tell people of this country nobody doing nothing? Nobody spying, macquaing, nothing? 750,000, about 750,000 interceptions. Which one of that was you, Kirk? How many of those was Marsha? How many of that is Jiren John? How many is me? Probably have the most. Probably have the most. 750,000 intercepts of speech and data. More interceptions on vaccine. So, and then the question arises now, how many criminals have they caught and locked up? You do over 750,000 interceptions in 1 year. How many criminals you charge and arrest and charge and lock up? Answer that. You say you're only using it for criminals. Answer. Out of 750,000, how many? Please tell us. Hundreds of thousands of intercepts with one of the lowest crime detection rates in the country. And therefore, again, whom are they spying on? So I don't believe a word when they all come preaching there, like Pontius Pilate, Heinz yesterday, and Rowley, and they can't even, as I say, get their stories straight. So it doesn't end there, you know. It does not end there. You say you're not doing it. Well, what was this 750,000 intercept? Who, what, when, why, where? And I was saying they wanted to beat me. That's the point I want to share with you. This Kamala must bring the evidence in Parliament. Heinz, Rowley said it, and Heinz said it. Kamala must bring. I bring no evidence for you foolish people. None whatsoever. I will bring no evidence. Because your plan is to bait me. But I'm smarter than that. You don't want to bait me, you know. You know why? You want me to call names. And then I will endanger and compromise persons by calling their names. I will not do that. But you very well know who these 750,000 intercepts. You know it. You know who they were, when, why, what, how, where. So I'm not taking any basket from you guys. You're not going to bait me to bring any evidence. In any event, when Rowley brought all those bogus fake emails to the Parliament, did he ever bring any evidence to Parliament? None. None. None whatsoever. Came to the Parliament with things that a primary school child could have made up, calling them emails. And all the investigations showed, coming from Google itself, done by the Integrity Commission, the FBI, every report said bogus, none true. And he very well knew they were bogus. Let me remind you something you may not remember. A motion was brought to the Parliament of privilege against Rowley for lying to the Parliament with the fake emails. You know what he did? Guess. He never attended a single meeting of the Joint Select Committee, of the Parliamentary Privilege Committee. Because he had no evidence, he couldn't prove anything. And all the evidence was against him. So I say, do not bait me. I'm not taking that bait. I'm not taking any basket from this incompetent, wicked bunch of people. But time longer than twine. We always say what's in the dark comes to light. And it is daily coming to light. Let me share some more light with you. The government must now tell us about Cytrox and Predator software. You have to come and tell us about this. You see, the more you deny, is the more people are sharing information with us. That's why they want me to call names too, because they want to catch the whistleblowers. And whistleblowers are blowing whistle all over the place about this government at this time. I asked the government, are you using spyware called Predator? This spyware is sometimes run in parallel with the Pegasus software. According to an article published in 2021 by researchers at the University of Toronto, 2021, just last year, the spyware known as Predator is equally as dangerous as Pegasus, and reports are that it has been used here in Trinidad and Tobago. We have an article putting up about Pegasus and Predator, and I'll share that link in my notes here. And these researchers, they examine how both Predator and Pegasus together were used to hack into the phones of journalists. They also found country-specific domain names that Predator uses for hacking. You know, Trinidad and Tobago making world news for all the right reasons or the wrong ones. Made world news for the pandemic and the number of deaths. Well, we are making news with respect to this spyware. Worldwide news. Let me quote to you as I state in that article from the University of Toronto. I quote, "Of the Showdown and census results, we identified several servers that returned HTTP server headers with the value server rather than NGINX. These servers were typically hosted on consumer broadband connections available to local subscribers only, rather than cloud hosting services that can be procured internationally. We believe," and I continue quoting, "we believe that the server IPs on consumer broadband connections are endpoint IPs that indicate locations of customers. We found endpoint IPs in the following countries." Did we make the news? Do you think we made the list? We found this where? In the following countries. These governments are likely among Cytrox's consumers. Continue the quotation and we'll put up the table there for you. Scanning also reveals a range of domains used by Cytrox that have country-specific themes, which leads us to suspect that they may be specifically targeted in relation to these countries. We list a subset of these in Table 4, and you'll see it up on your screen. Madagascar, and then you have the domain name there. Mali, so into emails, you know. Mali, Saudi Arabia, Serbia, and then who? Trinidad and Tobago. This is not the UNC. And there are two servers for Trinidad and Tobago. One is forward.eshoptt.com, and the other is guardiantt.me. I wonder if it's a Guardian journalist they're spying on. How come they can use Guardian as their domain name? Isn't there, rules and protocols that you cannot use somebody else's name? We have some fakesters and fraudsters who like to use the UNC name. It's called some kind of UNC cabal, totally nothing to do with the UNC. So is this a fudge using Guardian? I don't know. But there it is in black and white. Cytrox, a company which owns and makes Predator spyware, has taken out domain names based in Trinidad and Tobago, and is therefore, are they operating in our country? Or is this article a lie? The link is there, and of course, people can check it. So the two domain names, I've read them for you. I'm asking government tonight, how long has Cytrox Predator software been used in our country to spy on citizens? Tell us, come forth, and you bring the evidence that this article is false. You bring the evidence. And if the government denies using Cytrox Predator spyware, the question then arises, well, then who is using it? They've published it as being used here on two domain names. If it's not the government, well, then whom? Whom? Is it a friend or a financier or family? Because that's how they operate, your friends, financiers, and family. So we call them out. I say, what a tangled web they weave when they first set out to deceive. And it doesn't end there. You want more stories? True stories? We share more with you. Again, whistleblower blowing whistle all over this country. Heinz had a big press conference yesterday, all kind of thing about Kamala and who and who and who. I don't know why they just don't leave me alone. Because I'll come back for them politically. Heinz talking about me and spyware and all the kind of way and whatever. Drag all the poor acting commissioner of police to come and talk spyware as well. I want to ask him, yesterday that happened, why you did not tell the country, Heinz, that today, Monday, the Israeli Aerospace Industries, IAI subsidiary group, Alta Systems Limited of Israel are here in Trinidad and Tobago conducting cyber software, malware, and interception training today and tomorrow. Why didn't you tell the country that in your big press conference yesterday? If you had nothing to hide, why did you hide it? Why didn't you tell the country? I saw Minister Hans, I said a lot to say yesterday, but I have this question. Why did you not tell us and the country that Israeli Aerospace Industries IAI subsidiary group, Alta Systems of Israel, are here conducting, as I say, cyber spyware, malware, and interceptions training today and tomorrow at the National Operations Fusion Center? Why? A good question. Let them tell us who's getting this training. Listen more. All that talk yesterday, he forgot about the cyber spying, all this training today. And the question again, Mr. Hines, simple question. Why did you not tell us? And who are the persons that are being trained and why? The event hosted today and tomorrow is called the Cyber Workshop, conducted by the TTDF in collaboration with the Israeli Aerospace Industries IAI subsidiary group, Alta Systems Limited of Israel. Translated, it means how to use spyware, malware, and interception to terrorize law-abiding citizens of a country. Monday, 25th April, 2022, 9 a.m., National Operations Fusion Center, Knowsley Building, Queen's Park West, Port of Spain. And so today, members of our security forces, handpicked by the PNM, are in a workshop with Israeli Aerospace Industries, subsidiary group, Alta. Alta now is a private company. This is not a government-to-government engagement. Private company, Alta. The Trinidad government is facilitating training with a private security firm, Alta, which specializes in spyware, malware, and interception, amongst other things. Now I want to quote from an article from an Israeli newspaper. Thank God for the internet. From an Israeli newspaper. Yes? It's titled, "The Israelis Behind History's Most Sophisticated Tracker Program That Wormed into Apple." You know, Apple has cases against them now for hacking and so on. I have a link there for it. And I quote from that article. This is from the Israeli people. The Israeli government regards its tracking software as no less than a weapon, whose exports are supervised by the Defense Ministry. The ministry lets NSO sell the software only to countries with good relations with Israel and not to businesses. Israel is a star of the global interception and tracking industry. According to Bloomberg, there are some 230 companies, prominent among them being Israeli Verint, European Nokia Siemens, French Cosmos, and American Blue Coat and SS8, Italian Hacking Team, and British Common. Still quoting, other prominent Israeli companies are ALUT, Celebrite, and Alta. Now, why doesn't the nation know about this? Why they didn't tell us about it in your USS press conference yesterday? How much taxpayers' money is being used to pay Alta Systems? How much money are you paying for this? And if you have nothing to hide, why is this being done in secret? Tomorrow, the government is going to come to tell you that this cyber software, malware, and interception training is being done to build cybersecurity capacity to protect, again, the criminals and critical infrastructure and so on. But this company, Alta, that the government is now working this private company, and do you know something? That company was itself hacked. Alta was itself hacked. Imagine that. The government has hired a company to hack other people, and that company itself got hacked. Well, that sounds like something Hines will think sounds good for him. According to that same article, now, another article in the Jamaica Gleaner. In the Jamaica Gleaner on February 28, 2021, I quote from the Gleaner, "The Jamaican government, after months of silence, has disclosed that it has signed a 5-year Jamaican $4 billion contract with the Israeli firm, guess who? Alta Systems Limited." Same Alta. The article continues, I quote, "The disclosure and simultaneous assurance comes 2 months after a report by a technology website based in Israel reveal that Elter's servers were breached by Iranian-linked hackers. The magnitude of the breach was still being assessed up to the time of the report last December, according to the website CTECH. So guess when they hacking, somebody else hacking them and getting your information too. That's what's happening. That website, which is run by Calcalist, a leading financial daily in Israel, revealed that personal details of a top executive of its parent company, Israel Aerospace Industries, remember that name? I called before, Israel Aerospace Industries, IAI, were exposed. Same people that they may be using here. So the company in Jamaica claims that it hired to protect them from cyber attacks. They got a cyber attack too. You understand that? And this is a company that Rowley and Hines hired to bring here to train their handpicked persons about spyware, malware, and interception. Can you believe it? This thing gets curiouser and curiouser and curiouser. But this is not about Alice in Wonderland. This is about Rowley and a PNM in Never Never Land. Totally dictatorship government. Never Never Land. So, I've shared this information with you. There is more. There'll be more times. We'll be together again. We will be, must be. And I'll share more with you. But during the height of the pandemic lockdown, I think we shared with you, Barry, remember we had got some information from a whistleblower, that Israeli aircraft landed in Trinidad. You all remember that? And they came like thieves in the night and left like thieves in the day. We don't know what they came for, why they came, how they came. And when the questions were asked, I think they said somebody came to check the radar or fix the radar. But they came in secret, in the midst of a lockdown of the country in the pandemic. And up to today, I think there's about 50 Israelis in an Israeli plane, landed at Piako. And they never left. Well, look, they never left. So what are these people doing? What are they doing here? Israel is number one in the world, it appears from these articles, with spyware and macaware and malware and all those other kinds of things. So I warn you, I always ask you, be careful on your phones. Big Brother is watching you, but not for good reasons. Be very, very careful. So you remember when we used to watch spy movies on FBI and CIA and all these people, when you have something you really don't want somebody to know, what do? They go and take a walk in the park. They leave the phone somewhere else and take a walk where there's noise. So think about it carefully, because they are spying on citizens of this country. I don't believe any of the things they're saying, that these stories are not true. They are true. It's too much. It's too much coincidence. It's just too much up, one on top of the other. It's too much, and we don't believe you. We do not believe you, Rowley. We will never believe you, because you're a complete pathological liar. I will close now. I talked to you all a little while back about PICAL. Remember those people? Foster? Well, look, I tell you, whistleblowers all over the world. I talked to you about PICAL and the entry onto carrying lands, and they never answered that. I told you about Foster and the occurrences with PICAL, and he came out quoting the Bible. You all remember that? Yes. Well, listen, I could quote Bible too, because I'm a Baptist. So you think I'm a Hindu and I don't know the Bible? I know my Bible very well. Read your Bible every day. So you think you quote Bible when it suits you. You went on to quote the national anthem. He tried to play what? The race card. That is what he was doing, and he failed. You know what he did not say? Thanks for the Bible quotes and thanks for the anthem. But what you didn't say is this. He did not say it was not true. He never denied it. He couldn't say that, because if he did, he would be in even more trouble. He did not say, well, look, I have a lease, I have a piece of document, I have a legal piece of paper. Nothing of the sort. Quoting Bible. What is called it? I'm sure quoting verse and Bible, as they say. Chapter and verse. Come show us you have a lease, you have a proper document. Are you land grabbing state lands? And then I tell you tonight, I have another one to tell you. Another development with PICAL. And this has to do with Indian Trail Recreation Ground in Kufa. For months, PICAL had been doing excavation works at the Indian Trail Recreation Ground. Nobody knows who had them. Nobody knows who gave them permission. And you see, MP Indira Singh asked a question in the parliament, and government said that no contract had been given to this Pikal to do any works on this land. So again, invading lands there. I want you to look at this video, please. Discontinuance on Pikal service for work on the site, and their notice was dated 7 February 2022, and I think this is the notice there. No contract given to Pikal by any government agency. They went on the land, started excavation works, and then they quit notice. They had to discontinue work taking place at Indian Trail Recreation Ground. Again, was this another blatant attempt by Pikal to land grab? I again asked for Sir Cummins to stop quoting anthem and what is it? Chapter and verse, and provide evidence that your family's company is doing legal work on county lands in any of these two venues. I call again on Rowley to tell the nation who has the lease for the compound of the former Exchange Section Office of Karen Limited. Has a friend or financier of the PNM bought this land? So a lot of questions answered by Mr. Foster Cummins himself. And finally tonight, I will share quickly with you another very disturbing development. Very disturbing development. I have to ask the government if there are plans to shut down EMBDC, Estate Management Business Development Company. I have received a cabinet minute from a PNM MP. Well, received a cabinet minute from a PNM MP. Well, I'm not telling you who, not calling no names, with respect to state lands. Excuse me. This minute is dated 7th April 2022. It concerns appointment of a special advisor to the Prime Minister, responsibility for state land single point of authority project in the office of the Prime Minister. This is a minister who resigned because he wanted to spend time with his family, Clarence. But he didn't want to spend that time again. That family time ended very quickly, and now he's person earmarked to take this special advisor's job in the office of the Prime Minister. Now, in reading the cabinet note, we see the appointment for Clarence Rambarat to be the single point authority for state lands. That includes EMBDC, Carney lands, you name it, all state lands. And in the past, the Commissioner of Police was the sole authority for state lands to give permissions and leases and so on. Commissioner of State Lands, yes, police, right, okay. Commissioner of State Lands, the authority by law. So you have a check and balance because these are not political appointees. They are public servants and have to work in a certain manner. So this cabinet note now tells us, and you'll get it online so you can read it, what tells us is that the EMBDC lands are going to be placed under this single point authority. But you know, at the moment, there are a lot of court matters. Contractors with the EMBDC who did work for the government years ago. This government has not been paying them, and so they filed court cases against the government, against the EMBDC to get their monies. A whistleblower has told me it appears that the government is going to lose the cases. And therefore, they want to do a similar thing that they did with EFCL. When the court awarded contractors who did EFCL work that they have to be paid, what did the government do? They shut down EFCL. So it becomes a shell company, a bankrupt company, and then, well, people get no money. Is this a plan that the government loses the cases against EMBD for the hundreds of millions, that they will shut down the EMBDC in the same manner to deprive the contractors from getting money for works done? A whistleblower has suggested this, so I'm asking the government, is that your plan, to shut down EMBDC, to deprive person who did work for EMBDC from getting the lawful, legally entitlements in law. And, well, I'm told there's a lot of discrimination, so some are getting paid and some are not. So are they going to mash up EMBDC? So they will no longer have guidelines, they'll have no rules, no oversight, and you'll put your hand-picked PNM man, Clarence Rambarat. And not just for EMBDC now, this is all state lands. It's part of that plan by hand-picking this single point authority in the person of Clarence that you're now going to start to share land left, right, and center to your friends, your family, and your finances, and Foster Cummins. Is that what you're going to do? Yes, well, and Farris too, I guess, and so many others. I mean, these people recuse themselves up to the last time we found out 192, was it 200? Over 200 times they recused themselves from cabinet meetings because they had some kind of interest in what was taking place. Well, I had a good evening with you tonight to share some information. Please share it on to others, because we have seen crime in this country continue to spiral out of control. The government fiddles, they're clueless how to solve the problem. They're spending millions on the wrong things, man. On Tuesday, enough is enough. There were so many police cars and police officers all over the country. On that same day, two brothers got murdered. Another headless body found. Look up in the Heights of Aripa, another murder. You talked about bringing pepper spray, you talk about putting cameras, nothing. You're spending your money instead to muck and spy. How much are you paying to all these Israelis in the country when you could take that money to resource the TTPS, the Defense Force, and the Coast Guard? We are facing a tsunami in this country of inflation. Taka would have told you about it. Crime, Sean, others, in every regard in the education sector. And this will affect not UNC alone, not PNM, this is going to affect every one of us, regardless of creed or race, whether you're red, blue, green, doesn't matter. It's every person in this country is getting slapped down and mashed down. Marsha used the word slaughtered in this country, and they don't care. You're using the money for all the wrong reasons instead of using it to build and protect our citizens, to grow our country. But I tell you, UNC family, our great party is more united now than ever before. We will not stop. We will not be distracted. We will not stop fighting this wicked, corrupt, evil government. A brighter day is around the corner. A better day for our country will come soon. And if you believe it, you will make it happen. It depends on every single one of us. As I ask you, let us hold hands, let us put God in front, let us walk behind, and let us rebuild, restore, and take back our country from this wicked, rowdy regime. God bless you. And again, thank you all very much for all your kind wishes. And I pay tribute to a legal luminary. He's called the International Legal Luminary. His name is Ravi Balgobin Maharaj. He is a serial litigator. So all these matters, he's always there with his brilliant lawyer, Anand Ramlogan. They take the fight to the course, and they took the NIB, when they failed to file the NIB reports in Parliament, they took it to court. When the matter was filed, then IMBERT filed them. We'll be taking again the reports for the interception reports. They don't do it, they're into the court. And then now, Mr. Ravi Balgobin Maharaj, we congratulate and thank him for his commitment and dedication. He has filed another pre-action letter through his attorneys, Anand Ramlogan and Freedom House Chambers, Freedom Law. This one now is against the chairman of the NIB. Remember we told you that the chairman that IMBERT appointed was totally against the law for the appointment of a chairman. And, no, what nonsense you all talking, and you all had hired people before as chairman and whatever. And they called saying, boy, if somebody did something wrong once, they don't mean right the second time. It is wrong. What you've done in law is wrong, and Mr. Legal Luminary Rafi Balgobin will meet you in the courthouse to answer your breach of the law. God bless you, and I thank you very much.